The Indiana Fever are headed to the playoffs for the first time since 2016, and rookie Caitlin Clark has played a huge role in their success this season, of course. She's setting records left and right. Kelsey Mitchell, Aaliyah Boston, and more are fueling the Fever's success this season. All that and more today on Locked On Women's Basketball.
You are Locked On Women's Basketball, your daily podcast on women's basketball. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome. This is Locked On Women's Basketball. I am Talia Goodman, and I cover the Indiana Fever for the Next. And our guest for the day, Tony East, is a Fever aficionado. I think that's how you pronounce that word, I think. He covers the Fever for the Next and has been covering this team through its highs and lows, right? We'll talk about the Fever today. We'll talk about them making the playoffs. And, of course, this isn't me hosting a Fever podcast without us talking about Caitlin Clark. So we'll do that, of course. Thank you for making Locked On Women's Basketball your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Remember that Locked On Women's Basketball is brought to you by everyone at The Next, a place where we cover women's basketball 24/7 and tell the stories that need to be told every day. Subscribe now to support the staff at The Next. It's $9 a month or $72 a year, and you can find us at thenexthoops.com. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. This summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a booster bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. On today's show, though, we are going to talk about Caitlin Clark and all of the record-breaking performances that she's had. I got a list here somewhere. I can't read them all because there are just too many of them. Yeah, it could. It could be 3 episodes talking about each one of them, but we'll talk a little bit about that. Then we'll look back at how we got here, because the last time I talked to you, Tony, I think it was very early on in the season, and we were talking about how the Fever started off the season 1-8. So we're going to go back to that, and then we'll preview the Fever's playoff appearance coming up here. But Tony, let's talk about Caitlin Clark first, because that's what we got to do on any one of these. So last time we talked, I know we talked about kind of your expectations for her this season and whether she'd lived up to them in maybe the few weeks of the season that we'd had up to that point. But I want to do a check-in with you on where you think she's at now and how she's really evolved since the beginning of the season. So where do you think she's evolved most since, her first game, I think it was against the Sun, her first game to now?
Yeah. When we talked, I think the first time I said met expectations, now it's exceed significantly. It's the transition to me happened. She works with assistant coach Jesse Miller on keeping her dribble. And the first thing she started to do better was she would dribble more towards the sideline to open up the pocket pass she loves. And then she wouldn't do the pocket pass. She'd just dribble to the basket. And then when the shot was in there, she'd keep dribbling and come back out and reset. And all of a sudden all the options were there that when in college, she'd just pick it up and throw it to Monica or whoever, right, and then they'd get their possession going. She couldn't do that. The defenders are bigger and better. And she figured that out. And then she figured out, hey, we're really good in the open floor if everybody runs the corners. And hey, we're really good at this. I figured out where Aaliyah Boston and I really connect. Oh my gosh, Kelsey and I, they have to decide. Kelsey Mitchell hasn't missed a shot since the middle of June. It feels like it just little things keep adding, whether it's her handle, whether it's her partnership with another guard, whether it's how to use her bigs. All of a sudden, she knows that Lexi Hall can't miss. She just keeps getting better and better. And her shot was rickety early, and it's still not what she wants it to be, but it's better now from deep, and she can pull up from anywhere, which forces defenses to guard her a certain way. So I think a combination of Kelsey Mitchell forcing defenses to pivot their attention not all to Caitlin Clark, Caitlin's own adjustments to keeping her dribble alive to make sure her plays can come whenever they want. And the team's just general growth everywhere have made her just exceptional all the time, right? She has 25 and 12. I'm yeah, okay. That's not weird. It's mind blowing. So yeah, totally exceed expectations and has been absolutely balling since the Olympic break. That mental break, more than a physical break, I think was big for her.
Well, I think it's funny because I think before the season even started, there were kind of two sides of it, right? There were the people who maybe said, no, there's no way she's going to be this good in the WNBA, right? The higher competition, all that. And they were right in a sense that she needed the adjustment time. And it's a lot going from college to the WNBA, and she needed that time. And then there's the other side of it who said she's going to be the greatest player of all time from day one. And that maybe could be right, not from day one, but they had some validity to their argument as well. And I think it's funny because you were very in the middle of it, and maybe that was to play it safe. I don't know your motives, but
Some people call me a fence sitter covering the Pacers, so I will gladly take that mantle here too. I do fence sit quite a bit.
Well, but from day one, though, we've seen a lot from Caitlin Clark, and there were some things that she clearly had to work on from the beginning. I remember last time it was the turnovers were the big thing at the beginning. The turnovers were a lot, and that's one of the records that she broke, right? I don't remember exactly what it was, but something to do with turnovers. But I look back, and I have a list here of all the records that she has broken. I will not read them all, but I would like to read a select few of them here and just go through kind of what you think stands out to you, but I'll read a few. WNBA rookie single season scoring record, which I think is the newest there. WNBA single season record for assists. First WNBA rookie to record 1 triple-double, then 2 triple-doubles. WNBA single season rookie record for 3-pointers. Single season rookie record for assists. And the first triple-double in Fever history, right? Which that's just, this is not an exhaustive list. I didn't have room in my Google Docs sheet to include them all. Genuinely, I think my computer might have combusted if I did. But that's a lot for a rookie, and people are obviously watching it and noticing this. Which of those stands out to you? I guess as if you were there, it was the most impressive to see in person, or what stands out to you from kind of that list?
Yeah, the single game assist record was the craziest one to watch because it's just like the Wings would be like, "Oh, we can stop Caitlin. We can't stop anyone else, but we can stop." I will do the opposite of fence sitting. I will be a contrarian. You've been in press conferences with Caitlin before. There's a lot of like lead up to questions. It's like, Caitlin, we knew you could score, but your passing really stands out. I actually kind of feel the opposite. With her range, I thought that she would be able to score at least to some level in the pros and like leverage her shot to get into the paint and score. The fact that her passing has been this insane, like immediately with new teammates in a league with bigger players and faster players and more advanced defensive schemes is insane to me. That she is this level of just like, it's ridiculous. So all the scoring records are blowing my mind because everyone could shut her down with size now. Dejanay Carrington and Ty Harris were on her opening night, and we talked about that. She had 10 turnovers, didn't look that good. And I was like, oh, is she going to score like this? Yes, she can. No one can guard her. The passing's crazy on a new team. All of them are really ridiculous to me, but I'm actually more impressed by the scoring, I think, in general than the passing because she figured out the passing so fast, right? She had 3 assists in the first game. She had 8 in her third game. She had 8 in her fifth game. She had 9 in her ninth game. The scoring kind of came and went. Like she had a 3-point game in her 11th game. She had a 7-point game in her 14th game. I don't know. I kind of think the passing came faster, and that phrasing, that question always bothered me. Like, oh, your passing's really impressing everybody. I'm like, nah, what? No. So the scoring ones are crazy to me. She just set the rookie scoring record tonight, I believe, at the game.
We're filming this,
which I didn't even know was coming, by the way. Like usually I'm aware when these milestones are coming and then they put it on the jumbotron. I'm like, oh, she did that. Okay. That's what it is. She just sets a milestone every game now. And some of that's that there's more games. And some of that's that she's like one of the best rookie guards ever. And like her name's next to Courtney Vandersloot in these passing. It's unbelievable.
No, well, what's crazy to me is that I feel like I'm almost becoming numb to it at this point.
I mean, I am.
Right? Like, I feel like there's another something absolutely mind-blowingly crazy every single week or every single game. Like, there's something every single time. And so I'm like, I look at this list and I'm like, she really did all that? Like, that's great. Because I feel like every time I hear it, I'm like, yeah, that sounds about right. Like, why would I be surprised at this point? But it really is just so impressive what she's been able to do this season. And obviously it's not over yet. There's still 1 game to go and at least 2 playoff games here. So we'll see what else she may be able to do then. But first, we're going to talk about the Fever's journey this season and how the last time we talked, they were struggling, of course, and now they sit at 6th in the standings, and they're, I think, firmly there right now heading into the playoffs. But before we talk about that, you've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Well, we have something a little different for you. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a free 3-week trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every single regular season Sunday afternoon out of market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel at any time. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to download America's #1 sportsbook. And my New Year's resolution was to cut back on sugar, and Magic Spoon makes that easier and more delicious than ever. I absolutely love Magic Spoon's variety pack because it has 4 flavors that I can cycle through every single morning. The 4 flavors, they're cocoa, fruity, frosted, and peanut butter, and they are also delicious. It has 0 grams of sugar, 13 to 14 grams of protein, and 4 to 5 grams of net carbs, and there's only 140 calories per serving. It's high protein, has 0 grams of sugar, it's keto-friendly, it's gluten-free, grain-free, and soy-free. I love to eat the fruity flavor right when I wake up every morning. It really is so good. Be sure to go to magicspoon.com/lockedon to grab a variety pack for yourself and try it today. And be sure to use our promo code LOCKEDON at checkout to save $5 off your order. And Magic Spoon is so confident in their product that it's backed with a 100% happiness guarantee. So if you don't like it for any reason, they'll refund your money with no questions asked. Remember to start your day off right with a delicious bowl of high-protein cereal at magicspoon.com/lockedon and use the code LOCKEDON to save $5 off. Thank you, Magic Spoon, for sponsoring this episode. And thank you for making Locked On Women's Basketball your first listen of the day. For your second listen, though, enjoy the Locked On NBA podcast. There is no off-season in the NBA, and Locked On NBA provides daily basketball analysis from national and local experts in 30 minutes or less. No one keeps you as informed and entertained as Locked On NBA. Available on YouTube or wherever you get podcasts, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. All right, I wanted to name this segment, where did you come from, where did you go? I was thinking Cotton Eye Joe while I was thinking about this, right? I'm thinking last time we talked, they were, struggling, and we talked about their 1-8 start and how maybe this season wasn't going to look too different from last season. But then everything just kind of exploded, and here we are, and the Fever are headed to the playoffs for the first time since 2016, and it's all looking good in Indianapolis. And it was you were at Gamebridge today. This will be out tomorrow, but you were at Gamebridge today, and the season's almost over, and it's just crazy how far that this team has come. So I'm going to very broadly ask you, how did we get here, Tony?
Yeah, we put that episode out on May 27th. I just looked up. They stunk. They won once. They beat the Sparks, which is very unimpressive. And in fact, not long after we released that, they lost to the Sparks the next day, right? They stunk to start the season. They were 1-8. But I will say, I told you this. I told Missy Heidrich this. I said this on local radio like 1,000 times. I said, call me at 4th of July. Tell me what the record is at 4th of July, because their schedule was crazy to start the season. And normally, I'm like, who cares? You have to play every team when you play every team. It is what it is. They played Connecticut, New York, Connecticut, Seattle, Las Vegas, Seattle. That was their first 9 games. That came in 2 weeks, right? They're going to lose 6 of those games anyway, if they were all at home with an unlimited prep. Mm-hmm. So their results weren't like surprising to me. I told a lot of people at their first game, I was like, I think they're going to start like 2-8. Like their schedule's really hard. And they did. And then their schedule eased up. They got a stretch of Chicago, Washington, Atlanta, Chicago, Washington, Atlanta, Chicago again. And they had a better record at the middle of June, and they had time to practice. Normally a coach says, we need time to practice. And I roll my eyes and I say, you're a professional sports team. You should be good. But every time the Fever would have a practice, the next game, their defense looked much better. So I'm like, okay, this is like a real thing. Like Christy Sides is not lying to me. So what happened was, 1, they actually had time to practice. They have a new player who has the ball all the time. That's a big chemistry hurdle to overcome. 2, they defended a little better. They're still not a good defensive team, but they were like the worst defensive team the WNBA had ever seen for the first games of the season. They had this stretch that I just talked about in mid-June where their schedule is easy, and they should have won those games anyway. But what really was important to me and what I wrote about was Caitlin Clark, Kelsey Mitchell, and Alyssa Smith and Aaliyah Boston all played well at the same time, right? Mm-hmm. That was very unusual for them early in the season. It was just a couple of them. That was very revealing to me that they were going to hit the ground running at some point. And so they just kind of treaded water enough to the Olympic break. And then lo and behold, they have no Olympians besides Christy Wallace. 11 players can all practice together for a long time. Christy Sides was right. They needed practices. They can all play with Caitlin. They can all play with each other. They figured out the rotation. Tammy Fag-Benley wasn't hurt anymore. Right. They figured out all this transition stuff. And now they've been awesome ever since. So I think it was a combination of insanely hard scheduling to the point that it actually affected their play. Mm-hmm. A new player who's ball dominant, which is a big adjustment, and figuring out how all the stars or their best players, whatever words you want to use, click together. Once that all fell in place, everything else is smaller, right? And it's easier to figure out. And so slowly over time, they figured out, okay, Lexi Hall should be the fifth starter, right? Not Katie Lou Samuelson or Christy Wallace. Okay, Tammy should play a lot. Oh, wow, this Fag Bentley, Demiris Dantas front court really works. Oh, wow, if Kaylin's in the open floor and we run to the corners, we're going to score every time. And it just so happens that at the same time, Kelsey Mitchell's been like the best scorer in the league for 2 months. That's not true, but close to it. So a lot of stuff kind of happened incrementally in those stretches. And then after the Olympic break, when they all got this time off to have like a second training camp, basically, they've been sensational. They've lost a couple of games. They've lost to Minnesota and Las Vegas since the break. That's it. Everyone else they've beaten. So they really are playing very well. And it was just kind of a slow buildup. But once they got the important things figured out, they've really been pretty dang good ever since.
I know you. What did you call yourself? A fence sitter? Was that what you called yourself?
Fence sitter, yes.
Fence sitter. I like it. Did you expect this, right? Like, I know you expected them to be better by July 4th, which you said, right? But did you expect them to be 6th place on this kind of streak and looking so good, like meshed together? Where does this stand compared to your best hopes for where you thought they'd be right now?
Yeah, my preseason prediction was that they would be battling for 8th or 9th with like Atlanta, Dallas. And Dallas has had so many injuries that they completely fell out of it, whatever. And for a little bit, it looked like that was going to be the case. And my thing to me is like, I think they're going to score. They scored last year, and now they have Caitlin Clark, but can they defend well enough? And they never have. They never have. So I look dumb for that. But they're better than I thought because they can score 1,000,000 points against anybody, right? So the how I thought is just gone. It's evaporated. And so that's how they've passed all these teams is like they just scored 109, 110 today, right?
Right, that's what I was going to say. Like 110 points is unfathomable. Almost.
Yeah. So like I had these predictions about where I thought they'd be. They had these playoff goals and they had these top 2 picks. It was time, right? It's time for the playoffs. I think that's what they actually wanted. It wasn't what they said they wanted. Like they actually wanted it. And I thought they were good enough, but they'd have to defend well enough. But it didn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's so weird to say that. They obviously would be a better team if they could guard. I'm not saying like defense doesn't matter to the Fever. I'm saying for them to reach their goal of making the postseason, how they defend does not matter because they score so much that they can beat anybody any night. There are nights that their offense is so good. Oh, the Connecticut Center building, whatever. We win, right? We can score 1,000,000 points. We just win. Oh, we're in Minnesota. Yeah, we can score enough points. We just win, right? Now they've scored enough in these games. They don't even defend awesome, just good enough to beat those teams I just said and New York. They've beaten everybody this season but the Aces, right? They can score enough to beat anybody. And so it hasn't mattered the way I thought. I still think next year it's going to be a huge topic. Can they defend well enough to be even a top 8 defense? They're probably like a top 4 seed right now. It still matters a lot, but they got to this point that I thought they could get to, not in the way I thought. And I think that's been really interesting and kind of indicative of the way Caitlin has grown and kind of weaved her way into the team because, again, a new ball dominant player kind of changes your whole dynamic. And once they figured that out, they've been really, really good.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I want to kind of transition to our last topic here because I think it fits is that we're heading to the playoffs, right? We're almost there. Obviously, the Fever will not get to host the first 2 games, which is a point of controversy all over my Twitter feeds right now, X feeds, whatever it is.
Oh, brother. Can I be mean? I'm not going to
be mean. Do it.
Why was this not a controversy before? This has always sucked.
I know.
There should have been a problem forever. The reason it's a thing is because they didn't have charter flights till this year. It's really hard to travel back and forth for a 1-1-1 series. I'm hopeful, as a fan of the WNBA, that this is the last year of this format because they have charter flights now and they can do a 1-1-1 series format and then do the best of 5s. So this is hopefully the last year that these down low seeds may not get a home game. End rant. People on the timeline, chill out. We've already fought these battles.
I was talking to my parents about this exact thing this morning, and they were both like, well, why would they not? Like, that's so dumb. Why would they not? And it's like, well, the league wasn't built for it before. Now I think there's going to be a lot of calls.
It takes 15 hours to fly from Hartford to Los Angeles or whatever the first round series could be. It's impossible to get to Mohegan. It's not actually possible. It's hard to get to Mohegan Sun.
It's hard. It is.
Yeah.
Challenge, but with charter flights, we pray to the gods that it will happen next year.
Yes.
Right. But I want to talk about the Fever heading to the playoffs, of course. And you mentioned Mohegan Sun. As of right now, the Fever are the 6th seed, will be the 6th seed, and the Sun are most likely 98%. I don't know the actual percentages. 98% set to be the 3 seed there. And so that is likely to be the matchup. And these are 2 teams that face each other a lot at the beginning of the season. And it was a lot of interesting matchups there. So I guess to start off, go back to the times you can recall where the Fever have faced the Sun as if this is going to happen. Maybe it won't, maybe it will, but as if it is. Do the Fever stand a chance of beating Connecticut?
I mean, they can beat anybody in one game, which means it's possible for them to, in theory, do well in a series against anybody. Do I think they'll beat the Sun in a series? No, I'm not going to predict that. Here's what I've said all season. There are 3 teams I think are the worst matchups for the Fever in the whole league. The Dallas Wings, they're bad, but somehow they give the Fever fits. They have a ton of front court size that's made Aaliyah Boston struggle, and they can play at this weirdly slow but sometimes fast-paced, and Enrique can just score whenever. They've really struggled with Dallas. They've really struggled with Minnesota. They beat Minnesota, but Fee didn't play, so does that count? And the Sun, because the Sun have really good perimeter defenders to throw at Caitlin. Dejanay Carrington, obviously going to be in most improved and defensive player of the year conversation. This has been good. But Ty Harris also has been really awesome defending Caitlin throughout the season. And yes, they did beat Connecticut late in August, but Caitlin had 19 and 5, right? That's a low output night for her, right? They have the players to be disruptive in that way. And Harris and Carrington also means they have someone for Kelsey Mitchell, right? And Aaliyah Boston's gotten better in this matchup, but Bree Jones used to give her trouble. So they just had like good matchup issues to cause the Fever problems. And that doesn't even, and none of the players I've said are Alyssa Thomas, who's like incredible, right? So it's just they've been a tough matchup before they even added Mabry, and Mabry was pretty good in that game. And again, the Fever did beat them very recently. Super balanced attack. Lexi Hall had 17, Kelsey Mitchell had 23, Aaliyah Boston and Melissa Smith in double figures. They defended well enough. Like, okay, proof of concept. They can beat Connecticut. Not in a series, I don't think. I'm picking the Sun in that. But the Sun are a hard matchup for them because of that stuff I just said. Steph White's a great coach. And Alyssa Thomas is really good, right?
Alyssa Thomas, yeah.
So what it would take to me is balance more than anything. Because, yeah, I think Caitlin with unlimited time to scout and see the game plan and all that, she'll be better. But Connecticut also has unlimited time to, add to their defensive game plan, whatever they're going to do, and make her life hard with the right players. So it's going to be on those other matchups that we haven't talked about. Can Melissa Smith get going? Can Lexi Hall hit her open threes? Can Aaliyah Boston really outplay Bree Jones like she did in that game? Not make that more even. And the bench will be important too, as it has been recently. They've been mixing and matching a little more. And they were very good in this game I'm referring to. Temi Fagbenle was plus 18 in 17 minutes, right? So that series would be tough for them. Again, their offense is so good they can win a game against anybody. But I specifically think that's one of their 3 hardest matchups in the whole league. And so it will require a lot of balance to me. That's what I think will be the key in that series, should it come to that. It's probably the most likely outcome, although I could still play Vegas. It's kind of in the air because Connecticut still plays Minnesota, who could clinch the 2 seed by winning that game. Now Connecticut can just beat this guy in their final game and clinch 3. I don't know. It's so chaotic. Just call me on Thursday. Tell me they're playing. But I think it's most likely by quite a bit. You're right that it's Connecticut. And I do think that's one of the tougher matchups, but that's fine. It's their first time in the playoffs. Get the taste of that. See what these teams can do to game plan. Learn what it takes to evolve in a series. And if you win, great. The proof of concept that you're that good's already there, but now prove it to everybody else in a series.
Yeah. No, the probability stuff is not really it's not my forte. So if I'm totally off,
I think you're pretty close to right.
I appreciate it. No, but seriously, math is not my thing. So if I'm totally off on that, please someone call me out, tell me, because I'm prepping my mind as if they're playing the Sun. So I hope I'm right on that. But even if they're not, I kind of want to just dive in quickly to let's say they are playing nobody in your mind. They're not playing anybody. They're just themselves.
Yeah.
What is we talked a little bit about how far they've come, right? What is their biggest strength as a team now? Right now, in this very moment, you were just at Gamebridge watching them play. What is their biggest strength as a team?
Offensive tempo. It's just so high paced. And I don't even mean like fast breaks and transition. I mean like they get a ball in a half court set and they shoot in like 4 or 5 seconds. And it's a good shot, right? And that's because Caitlin has a great court vision and Kelsey Mitchell's super fast. So there's a lot of stuff for a defense to pay attention to already. And that doesn't account for what the rest of their players do. That's really hard to plan for and defend as an opponent. You always have to pay attention on defense and ready to run fast. And there's just little head motions and signals that I think Caitlin and Kelsey have like, I don't know, some kind of mind reading device. Yeah, it's just awesome. It's been sensational. They're playing nobody. That would be their biggest strength is that they're really hard to plan against because it's just so quick and rapid, and they know what they're doing when the defense kind of does, but kind of doesn't, because Caitlin can make passes that a lot of other players can't, right? So it's really tough to guard them. And I think that will be tough in the playoffs. That said, what's the saying? The game slows down in the playoffs. Well, if the game slows down for the Fever, that's bad. We just saw the Aces beat them twice because the Aces slowed those games down quite a bit. And the Fever were like, crap, we can't get a run going on offense, right? So if the game does slow down and it's more physical with less stuff being called, like Becky Hammond just talked about that, she hates that, but it's how the game goes, right? If that's how it goes, that's stuff they have to learn because they're going to be a playoff team for a long time now, right? Stuff they have to learn, but they also have to figure out how to be good in that environment. And they have at times been okay, but it's really hard to just snap your fingers and change your style drastically. So I think that their biggest strength is also could what make the postseason difficult for them.
Yeah, I like it. And I have to bring this up just because I can't stop myself. But you said something about Kelsey Mitchell and Caitlin sharing brain, right?
Yes.
This just reminds me, and I have to bring it up, of I am a big Love Island fan, and there was a part of Love Island where they talked about two of them sharing one brain cell and switching off the brain cell for who needs it. And that's just what that reminded me of, because I think it's so true. And that is like you're seeing their shared minds and how much better it makes them. And so I had to bring my Love Island fandom into this in some way whenever I have the opportunity.
Yeah, a 106.2 offensive rating with those two on the floor together. Like that, what? That's crazy. Drops with Caitlin, no Kelsey, 102.6. With Kelsey, no Caitlin, 100.9. It's good numbers, but not as good as them together. With neither of them, 88.4. They should not do that. They should
both be there together is what we're
all as often as they can, right? It sounds so simple, but really.
Yeah, that's how you win. That is what we learned from this episode, is that heading into the playoffs, you just need to put them both on the court. They'll do their thing.
Turns out your two best scores together is a good tandem.
Usually good game planning. typically what you want to do. Well, one regular season game left for the Fever, not at home, and then they will face somebody in the playoffs. It may be Connecticut, it may be someone not Connecticut. We'll see what happens there. But thank you, Tony, for coming on, and thank you again for making Locked On Women's Basketball your first listen today. Now go check out the Locked On NBA podcast, where the season never ends, providing national expertise with local perspective. You can find the link to Locked On NBA in the description, so you don't need to search. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you again, Tony, for coming on. Always love talking to you.
Happy to be here.